Today I wanted to talk about the IC in the birth chart. For those of you that don't know, the IC is one of the major 4 angles, and it represents your roots, your inner world. It could represent your ancestors, what your perception of your childhood was. It could be connected to your family and their life patterns along with yours. And it's also your private self, the side of you that not everybody sees, only the people that are really close to you that you can share your home with, or whatever home may be to you. But it's the deepest part of your chart that really does signify your most private self. I actually have the sign Capricorn on the IC. And when you think about Capricorn, Capricorn is known as the great achiever, the hard worker. It's an earth sign. And so they're wanting to build, they're wanting to achieve, they're wanting to provide. Capricorn can also be symbolized by the father. And so having Capricorn on my IC, I could tell you right now, my father has shaped my inner world a lot. He was very influential. The thing about having Capricorn in the IC, it can actually go different ways, but for me, how it has played out in my life, my family didn't have the most money. My father had met my mom in the Philippines. He knocked her up, brought her back to the States, and they both worked really hard. You know, he was in the Merchant Marines. She was working at hotels as a housekeeper. They both worked really hard. They ended up divorcing. I'd go back and forth between them, but they always worked hard. And even though they weren't making a lot of money, they always worked hard enough to provide for me and for my brother. I will say, because Capricorn, it's not a very emotional sign in a sense. They hide their emotions because they're so focused on work, so focused on achieving. It's the sign of responsibility, of getting things done, doing what you have to do to provide for those that you love. It's not that they don't have emotions for those that they love. It's just that they're always thinking about building and what they can provide, what they can give. That is a form of emotional support for them. So when I was growing up, thinking about my mom, I am a Libra sun, and my mom is actually a Taurus sun. And Libra and Taurus are both Venus ruled, but our suns are in an awkward relationship with each other. It's in a quincunx aspect. And a quincunx it's a hard aspect that is awkward. You know, you don't see eye to eye. It's kind of a blind spot because even though they're both Venus ruled, they express Venus in a totally different way. So when you think about me being a Libra, I've always been a people person. I love communicating. I love interacting with people, and connection has always been really important to me. I remember when I was a kid, I would see, you know, mother-child relationships, and I seen, you know, how close their bond was, and I craved that connection. I wanted that connection with my mom, but I didn't have that with her. Her sign in Taurus, she came from very humble beginnings. Her family was not poor, but you can say borderline poor, and they worked really, really hard, and she didn't have a lot in life, and she was the eldest, and so her mother didn't give her any kind of love or affection. And her way of proving her value to her parents was really to work hard and provide for her family. Her coming to the United States and taking care of me, her emotional support for me was really to provide for me, provide what it is that I needed. You know, I didn't get everything I wanted. I wasn't privileged or spoiled. I just got what I needed, and she gave me that, and she worked really hard. And it was something that, of course, when I was young, I didn't see that. I just wanted that emotional connection, and I didn't see that that was a type of love that she was giving me. And you can also think of Taurus as like the sensual sign. They like to feel the senses. And so my mother, she always like loved decorating. She would make the holidays beautiful. She loved to cook. She'd cook all this like Filipino food and make all these Filipino desserts. And I actually have the biggest sweet tooth. I have Jupiter in Sagittarius, which could say that you are excessive when it comes to things that you enjoy or find pleasure in, and sweets is one of my great pleasures, and it's something that it's kind of hard to control, and I need to use my Virgo in my chart to kind of control the sweet tooth because it can get crazy sometimes. But anyway, she would make these really delicious sweet rice cakes. She'd make banana lumpias, and these, if you've never tried them, they're called turon, and they're caramelized in the sugar, and the bananas are just so soft and they taste so good. And I just loved all of her like dessert cooking. So she gave me those kind of like Taurus feels where I got to enjoy the food and enjoy her decorations. And, you know, she gave me what I needed. And I see that now she gave me so much more love than her mother ever did when she was younger. With Capricorn on the IC, usually you have to grow up really fast. And because of the fact that we didn't have that much money, I started working when I was 12, 13 years old. I was working at basketball games and doing the book and taking score. That was kind of my first job of making some real money and getting like a paycheck. Oh, and that was great because then I could buy clothes because this Libra wanted to look good and wanted to have the new shoes and the latest style. But when I think about Capricorn, having to grow up really fast, and I was young and I was taking myself to school. I was taking myself to school when I was in second grade. I was really young and I was walking by myself, and you know, my parents had sent me to my father's side of the family, and I would fly by myself across the country to go stay with my other side of the family. And so I was always extremely independent. You know, I started taking the buses when I was 10, 11 years old. But anyway, I grew up really fast and I had a ton of independence, and that kind of plays into the Sagittarius in my third house. But when I think about how it relates to your ancestors or your immediate family and Capricorn being on the IC, I think about both my mother and my father, because they also had very humble beginnings and they had to work really hard. My grandmother on my father's side had to work really hard. When I think about my father, you know, he was born right after the Great Depression and things were still a struggle. He was the fourth child out of 5 children. But my grandmother, she wasn't privileged. I think she had an opportunity to marry someone who was successful, but she chose love, and this man was not successful. If anything, he was anything but successful. He was a gambler. He was a thief. He went into prison. Every time he got out of prison, he'd knock her up and she'd have another child. She was doing it all on her own. Could you imagine after the Great Depression, and you know, you're a single mom with 5 kids, and how hard that was during that time, because you don't have the same conveniences as, you know, we do now, you know? So yeah, it's really interesting how the IC comes up. I encourage you to think about what sign is on your IC and the symbolism of the sign and how that reflects your upbringing and how you perceive things. I'm looking at my life now and how Capricorn reflects my home life. You know, I'm working hard to achieve something, and I've never felt like I've wanted to work hard to achieve anything. And now I have something that I really love, that I have a passion for, and I want to work hard for it. I have this determination. And Capricorn is the sign of determination and perseverance, and, you know, really going after what gives you purpose, what gives you meaning in life, you know, doing something that you feel like can give back to others. That's what Capricorn is all about. So I'm feeling that right now in my home life. I'm really focusing on that. It's been a big focus of mine. So, and you can also look to the opposite sign, which is on the MC, and the MC is really the cusp of the 10th house, and it is your career point in your life. It's your public self, and that is always going to be the opposite sign of the sign on your IC. And that's really whatever that you felt like you didn't receive when you're younger, you're going to want to give that back in some way in your public life. And I did feel like I was emotionally neglected, and Capricorn can represent that. And so Cancer being the opposite sign, Cancer being the sign of family, healing, and the sign of the mother, you know, I have this need to really take care of people, heal people, give them that emotional support, because I do think that everything stems from our family life and how we were brought up. No matter how hard we ignore those wounds from when we're a child, they're always going to come back up. And we have to learn from those wounds to really live a more fulfilling, happier life. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the IC point in your birth chart. Let me know in the comments if you know what sign is on your IC, if you relate to any of the symbolism that that sign brings to your roots, your family life, your emotional outlook from when you were a child. So peace and self-love.